What's up, y'all? It's me, it's your boy Asmongold, and today I'm going to show you guys how to get Challenge Mode Gold in UBRS, or Upper Blackrock Spire. Now, this is probably the hardest one in my opinion, and the reason for that is it's 25-minute timer, and if you're like me, it's kind of hard to go 25 minutes without making a ton of mistakes. And so that's probably why it's not really hard because of the pulls, it's just more of an endurance test, honestly. And so the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to pull the first 3 packs into the room to the right. The reason for that is the pack on the left doesn't have a lead belcher and the pack on the right does. The lead belchers are the hunter type guys that are the engineers, and you have to stun the lead belchers or interrupt them or somehow stop them, root them, anything that you can to basically prevent them from doing something as soon as they run to one of the turrets, because they're like an engineer and they repair the turrets, and the turrets do a lot of damage to you and they have like 1,000,000 health. And if you have a bunch of turrets that you have to kill, it's just a huge pain in the ass. The other mobs that you have to watch out for here are the Iron Warcasters, and the reason for that is that they cast something called Shrapnel Nova, and Shrapnel Nova is basically, it's like a little thing that they cast on the ground, and it gets smaller, and then it explodes, okay? And so you guys will probably see me getting out of it, and if you get hit by this in challenge mode, it does a ton of damage. Now here, like, this first room is just a complete fucking failure for us. Like, honestly, this pull, like, if you guys look at the clock there, it says like 4:20 or something like that. Like, that's not PM. Like, we're up fucking late doing this. This is the last one we need, and we just want to finish it up. And so we pulled the pack with the lead belcher into 2 dogs as soon as she went to the first cannon. Usually they only go to 1 cannon, and then you can kill them before they go to the next one. As you can see, they're running to the cannons. We get a Dragon's Roar and a Shadow Fury on them. Again, if they're running and you stop them from running by a stun or something like that, a fear, they will forget about it. They're like, I don't even want this cannon anymore. I'm just going to come attack you again because you stunned me. Okay, so it pretty much interrupts, like, I guess, like the cast of them running over there, if you guys want to look at it that way. Another thing that I didn't really mention, and I don't really think that I have to too much because you guys know how this works, is the rallying banners. The rallying banners, they put down a rallying banner, and basically what a rallying banner does is it's a circle that gets bigger. See, there's one right there. It's a circle that gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and whenever the circle touches another mob that's not in combat, it basically aggroes that mob. And so there are a couple of different ways. There's the shrapnel Nova right there, by the way, that I just moved out of. And we actually use that rallying banner to pull the other pack without having to worry about it. Now this right here is probably like where we wasted a whole lot of time. Like, we probably could have shaved a minute. I'm not even kidding you guys. A minute off of this run just by just cutting down on the mistakes that were made in here. Like, there's no control over these ads right now. Like, if we had some sort of, like, I don't know what we could have done. But actually I do. We could have all gone into another room and LOS'd everything around us. And that's what we should have done, but we didn't. And so this is a place where you can either save or spend a lot of time. Now, I've seen some groups, some very, very good groups, actually do this entire room in one pull. Now, the probability of you guys being able to do that is pretty low, because a lot of those people probably don't need to watch a video on how to do this challenge mode. They already know. But that is an option if you have just like insane AoE burst DPS and are able to chain a lot of cooldowns, but it's not something I would recommend. I would recommend doing it in 2 to 3 pulls. This next pack up here is very minimal damage, and you should use this pack as a time for your healer to get mana and have your DPS run around and click on these conduits, and the reason for that is so you can start the boss fight as soon as possible. The tank will probably be able to kill the ads without too much trouble, and as soon as the boss is activated and he's stunned, you can run up there and just start the boss fight. Some people pop heroism on this boss, and if you do that and you have a faster, like the first room than we do, if you're able to clear faster, you actually get heroism 3 times in this instance if you have everything pretty much timed down to the T. But the way that we chose to handle heroism is we're going to use it on Kyrak and also on the last boss, Zayla. And so the main things that you have to watch out for in this fight is he's going to be doing the same things that he does in normal mode, or sorry, heroic mode and normal mode, except for he has lodestones in heroic and challenge mode, is you pretty much want to have somebody assigned to getting each of these little different conduits and preemptively determine who's going to click each conduit. And so whenever he goes into his different phases, which, by the way, you can move halfway down that ramp to avoid Shrapnel Nova, but it's not really that important because there's not really that much consistent damage going out during the fight. Either way, so that was one of my conduits that I click on, and so I click on that conduit, I run back up, and so everything's pretty much clockwork. Now, if he casts a Thunder Cacophony, I think I pronounced that one right this time. Either way, if he casts one, it's not really a big deal. It's just you want to have it happen. You have it done as soon as possible, just because you're trying to save time. And whenever he has the he's channeling the debuffs from the conduit, you're not taking he's not taking as much damage. And again, if people don't know this, he channels the conduits at 75, 50, and 25%, and he channels more conduits the lower health he is. So here he's channeling like 6 conduits or something like that. And so basically, what it comes down to is you just want to make sure that you are able to click the conduits and stun him. See, that was a very, very good last phase, and so that's really what you want to have happen. Like if you only cast it once each phase, like you're doing great. Don't even worry about it. The circles do a lot of damage. Like they'll kill you in like 3 hits, and so you want to make sure that you plan it. And it's better to let a thunder cacophony go off than stand in those circles, even if you've got a cooldown up. Unless you're like a I don't know, like a shadow priest or something like that. And I don't even think you can use it. You can click through disperse. I have no idea actually. Either way, so as soon as you kill him, you go into these next 3 packs. The reason we're focusing down the Alchemists is because the Alchemists have a cast called, it's like Rejuvenation Potion, and they're going to cast that on themselves and on other mobs, and it heals for a lot, and it also has a very fast initial heal, and so the probability of being able to dispel it before they cast it is kind of low, and so, or before it ticks and does a heal is kind of low, and so you want to make sure that you at least kill it. The monstrosities also cast this eruption thing. It's way, way faster. And so you've got to be ready for that and not getting hit by it, obviously, but be ready for it because I actually got hit by it once. I hope it's not in this clip. And engineers do the same thing they do in Heroic. They channel the discombobulation beam or debilitating ray. There it is. And so that's just a channel debuff on somebody that makes them, I think it does, makes them do less damage. It's just something you need to interrupt. There's only one thing you need to interrupt in this little pack here. And so just make sure you focus interrupts off of the engineer. Other than that, this is pretty easy to do. The monstrosities do a significant amount of damage in challenge mode, and they also do a cleave attack, as noted by their debuff there, or buff, I guess, whichever way you want to look at it. Debuff on you, buff on them, and either way, so make sure you're not standing in front of them if you're melee. That's really what it comes down to. If you get hit by the eruption, it disorients you. I don't remember if you can dispel it or not, but you should never need to find out because that's a dumb thing to get hit by. For this boss here, this is where we're going to pop heroism, and we want to burn down these monstrosities in Kyrak as fast as possible because this is a very heavy damage phase. As you can see, our tank is taking a lot of damage. And so anyway, make sure that you focus down one monstrosity and then you kill the other one. I think that's the most efficient way of doing it because obviously then you're lowering damage quicker. Kyrak also casts Rejuvenation Potion or Serum, and there he is. He's casting it right there, and the guy died really fast, and so it wasn't really too much of an issue. He also casts the green slime. It comes out of him, and then it actually goes onto the ground. And so you can actually, I mean, like, if you're good, you never get hit by that. Like, if you're melee and you get hit by that, you're having problems, okay? I mean, it's like, it's alright if you get hit by it every once in a while, but if you're getting hit by it, like, constantly, you need to pay the fuck attention. And so either way, make sure that you dispel Rejuvenation Serum. He also casts Debilitating Fixation on somebody. Guess what you do? You didn't interrupt it. Like, it's on like a 15-second cast or timer, and so one person can interrupt it every single time. He also casts a poison, I believe, that needs to be dispelled, and if it's not dispelled, the person who has it just needs to move away from everybody else because it's like a pulsing AoE damage from around them to everybody else. But I believe that almost everybody can dispel it, so it's not really that big of a deal. Either way, this boss kind of has a lot of health, and so you can kind of kite him towards the ramp up to the next area, and so that can kind of save you a little bit of time, but you can expect to spend a pretty good amount of time doing this guy. Obviously, you can focus more on single target and do more passive cleave onto the ads, depending on how strong your group is and what cooldowns you have up. And again, this is where we chose to use heroism, and so if you guys want to use it somewhere else, it could be useful, but we didn't really want to use it on the first boss because he gains a buff that makes him take less damage, and so I figured that it wouldn't be very effective. But again, if you do have everything timed out right, you can get through 3 heroisms in this instance here. And so anyway, as soon as we cleared this, we're going to go up to this top area. Now this next pack has 2 things that you need to be aware of. I forgot which guys do it, and it doesn't really make that big of a difference. It's the veterans and the elites. And one of the 2 of them casts a spell called Shield Bash, which is a frontal cone attack that can hit other people that are in that frontal cone area. And if you're outside of, I think, 8 yards away from them, they will also charge to you and do a knockback that does a good amount of damage. We pulled the Siegebreaker with that pack because this is a very minimal damage pack, honestly, compared to the rest. And the Siegebreaker gains an Enraged. It needs to be dispelled. If it's not dispelled, it's not the end of the world, but it does do a good amount of damage. Your tank will also gain a Sunder Armor debuff, and so make sure that you're aware of that and you're popping cooldowns depending on how many stacks you have and all that. Some people choose to invis through this entire hallway, and I think that that's kind of a viable strategy, but it just kind of depends. Our mob count was a little bit higher than it needed to be, but I know that this strat works, and it's also pretty, it's very minimal risk, which is why that's why I always try and do in challenge modes, is you're always going to have things that happen, I guess, that are like out of your control. And so you want to minimize the things that are out of your control, and some of those things are like kind of random mob abilities, and just like heavy, risky tank pulls and everything like that. And so just make sure that you guys are kind of always minimizing risk. As with these two Siegebreaker packs, you can pull them into the group of 4 up there. Again, that's another way to save time, but the Siegebreakers do a lot of damage, and so make sure that you're aware of that, and you're dispelling them. Make sure you don't get it by Crush. That's kind of a common sense thing. But either way, we chose to pull the next Siegebreaker just because we wanted to save time. We actually missed this timer by like 10 seconds. And so, I mean, think about it. Like, you miss a 25-minute timer by 10 seconds, that's going to piss you the fuck off. Well, I mean, if it doesn't piss you the fuck off, like, I want some of the drugs that you're taking, because, like, that would just, I mean, I was not fucking happy, man. I was not happy. Either way, so after you pull the 2 Siegebreakers, and you can pull the padding ad also. I think there's a Dreadweaver also that also pats around. You can pull that, or you can not pull it. It just kind of depends. You probably don't want to pull it, because if you're using this strategy, you don't have to kill as many mobs as we do kill. And so anyway, this pack here, there's 2 things you need to watch out for here. The Dreadweavers cast a Shadow Bolt AoE volley. That needs to be interrupted immediately. And also the Summoners summon things. Guess what you need to do? You need to interrupt the Summoners so they don't summon extra ads, because it's going to waste a ton of time. And so either way, this is a pretty easy pack to do, honestly, and so you just want to get this done. Make sure that you kill the, in my opinion, I think the Dreadweaver is the most deadly, because he casts the Shadow Bolts. Shadow Bolts do a good amount of damage, more than the other mobs do, and he also can cast the AoE ability. Now here, what you can do is you can run against the gate here, and you can kind of like aggro the Vial-Maw halflings, and that's going to save your healer a lot of stress. And you can use all kinds of different things. If you're a warrior tank, you can use Mocking Banner to aggro them through the wall. There are tons of different things. So you want to use every thing you have. Watch AoE grip. That's another thing you can do. AoE grip into a stun. Tons of different things. Like, look, see, the Vial-Maw, whatever the fuck they are a non-issue. And so that's what you want to have happen. And also, they're going to run to the middle as soon as the gate naturally opens. And so that's more time that you can save on the timer, and also tank damage that you can minimize. Now, the first pack is very easy to deal with, because it doesn't have any Summoners or Dreadweavers. The next pack is going to have 2 Dreadweavers in it, and so you want to make sure that you have Dispels on lock for these Dreadweavers, and it's very important. Now here, that was very bad placement for Ravager. I just wanted to mention that, because that was just absolutely terrible. Don't ever do that. And so either way, make sure that you have the Dreadweavers locked down, and they also cast Veil of Shadow. I forgot about that. Veil of Shadow is a curse that makes you take less healing. It's like 75% less healing too. So it's not like this is just like a minimal thing. It's actually kind of a big deal. And so see, there's Shadow Bolt Volley. Not going to fucking happen, okay? And so make sure that you're on top of Shadow Bolt Volley. Berserkers don't really do a whole lot. They're just basic melee mobs that put a bleed on you. That's not really a big deal. So the next 2 packs, important ads that you'll have to look at here are their 2 Summoners. And so the 2 Summoners, obviously what you have to do is you have to interrupt them. But other than that, you can cleave them down naturally. They do sometimes spam cast their summon, and so whenever they do that, go ahead and make sure that you interrupt that, and keep them a stun or something like that. Also, there's an Engineer in this pack too. I forgot about him, and obviously he's going to do the same thing that they did in the pack before the boss and before the second boss. Is he casts a Debilitation Ray, and so you don't really have to interrupt that immediately, but it's important that you interrupt it eventually, because it is I think reduces whoever it's cast on, it reduces their damage, and also it just is more damage on the tank. The Sky Reaver, make sure that if you're a melee, you get your dots on it if you have a dot, and you just do as much damage to it as you can. Now this is pretty much the exact same as it is on Heroic, and main thing that you need to watch out for is make sure you don't get breathed on. The Sky Reaver will point in a direction, and then it will breathe. Guess what you don't do? You don't stand in front of the breath. It makes you take extra fire damage. I don't know how I got hit by it. Also, sometimes Starbeck will melee a melee player before he gets off of his mount. I think that that's a bug, but I wouldn't really expect it to get fixed anytime soon. And so just make sure that you're aware of that and you don't let that happen. Sky Reaver also puts poison on the ground, but it's not really that big of a deal. I mean, if you're dying to poison, you're probably not getting gold mode. And so either way, make sure that no two players are in a line between the farthest player and the boss. And the reason for that is he does a charge to certain players, and if another player is in the way of that charge to that certain player, that other player does take damage. So you look at me and see that was stupid, right? That is exactly what I told you guys not to do. Don't do that. So I just took unnecessary damage, and that's damage that the healer has to heal, and he also can't be helping us do damage on the boss. And so it's just more wasted time. He also puts a bleed on people, and it's like kind of like a hateful strike mechanic. If you guys remember Patchwork, see, I got hit again. Look at that. And so he also does Ravagers. It's just like General Nazgrim. As you can see, they just kind of overwhelm the room, and it's not really anything you can really do anything about. It's just you don't want to stand in them. If you're getting hit by Ravagers, again, like you're probably not getting gold mode to begin with. So just avoid Ravagers and make sure that you're not standing in a line between other players. See, right now, if he charges, who's that, Pyro? I get hit. See, I got hit again. And it's kind of hard to avoid as a melee, honestly, just because of sometimes the other range players' positioning. But I would still kind of consider that my fault. Also, as soon as you finish the boss fight, you can go ahead and the next pack is not really going to be too deadly, but you do want to have at least minimal cooldowns up, and you can probably pull it with a stun if your healer is drinking. The main mob that you want that's new here is the Ground Shaker. Now, the Ground Shaker does, like, he's a fucking ogre, and I mean, you guys know how stupid ogres are. And so look what he's going to do. He's going to hammer the ground. He's not hitting anything, but he's really stupid because he's an ogre. And so you just want to make sure that you're not standing in front of him, because if you're standing in front of him, you're dead. It does, like, 100,000 damage each slam, and he's slamming a whole lot of times, okay? And so make sure that you're not standing in front of that. They also do a fear. And so make sure that you're aware and ready for that. So like warriors, make sure you have Berserker Rage, etc., etc., etc. The dogs also do a Frontal Cleave, but you guys probably already know that from the trash before the first boss. Now this next pack is kind of different. Some people pull it up into the last room that we're in. I don't really think that's a good idea. Personally, I just AoE it down right here. Now the Drake Keepers are very interesting. They function the same way as the Lead Belchers do before the first boss. And they run to their different Drake cages, and if you let them get to the Drake cages, they'll like resurrect the dragons. But if you don't let them get there, or you stun them, they'll just say, "Fuck the dragons! I'm just going to come back and attack this guy. I don't even care about the dragons." And so they'll actually go back again in like a long amount of time. But if they're going to the dragons twice, you've got some shitty fucking DPS, and so don't really worry too much about that. Just make sure you AoE them down and stun them, grip them back, do whatever you can, fear them. Use some sort of CC basically as soon as they as soon as they run to their dragon cages. The next pack is going to be 2 Ground Shakers. The main thing that you need to worry about here is it being feared on top of the stun, and so make sure that you have some way to get out of the stun while they do the fear. Usually that won't happen, but sometimes it will, and so just make sure that you're aware of that, especially if one of them gets their like timing mixed up. And this is very deadly for melee, but it's not really as deadly as you might think. Like if you're melee, see look, our tank almost just died there. And so it's very dangerous. The Ground Shakers are very dangerous for a tank. And so if you're not paying attention, see, yeah, we just fucking soul stunned them because we're ready for that. See, I just got hit there. That's like, what, like 80,000 damage I took, you know, including the absorb. And so anyway, there's the fear. I don't know why I didn't use Trinket here. It was kind of stupid. But either way, you don't really need to worry too much about these guys. I would not pull them with this boss. The reason for that is because of the fear. And whenever this boss does Engulfing Flames, then you can have some issues. The ranged on this fight usually want to be spread out towards the back of the room. And the reason for that is that Ragewing is going to put basically fire void zones under people. And it's easier for melee to move back and forth. If it's not right in the middle of the, if it's not right in the front of the little gate here that you're fighting him, so you can always be meleeing him and you don't have to stop meleeing him whenever you have to move. So here's Engulfing Fire, and Engulfing Fire works pretty much the exact same way as it does in, in heroic mode. Some people were like attacking him through the wall as ranged, like from the wall, the room that we just came in as. I think they nerfed that, but I'm not really sure. Either way, Ragewing functions the exact same way as she did in heroic mode. And another thing is that these like red circles that you are getting hit by sometimes, make sure that everybody, like one thing you can do is you can just all stand in one place and you probably won't die. Just if you can commit to having everybody just stand in one of those little fire zones and having the healer just heal everybody through that, you're probably going to save yourself a whole lot of grief, because it does like 50,000 damage, and the drakes do like nothing. And so don't really worry about it. See right here, see I had to run through the fire to get across the edge, and I still fucked up. That's my fault. But either way, if the fire wasn't there, it would have been easier for me to get over to the other side. And so again, make sure that you're towards the back of the little ramp here, or what is that, bridge? Of course, it's a bridge. Either way, make sure that you're on the other side, towards the back of the bridge here, if you're a range. And so here we go. See, there was no fire at the beginning, and see, look at that, fucking our healer almost got one shot by that. And so it's very deadly. It does like 150k damage, and so watch out for it. But again, like these like little AoE phases are very minimal damage. Just make sure that you have at least a little bit of AoE healing going out if you're the healer, and you shouldn't really have too much trouble with it. After that, Ragewing is obviously going to come down, and you're going to have to finish her off in melee. She still gains stacks, and her stacks stack up to like 4, I think. And there's like, that's the thing with the little Bloodlust, or the Bloodthirst little emblem or tooltip on it, or I don't even know what it's called. But either way, so just make sure that that's dispelled whenever it goes over like 2. Honestly, like if you have good DPS, you don't even really need to dispel this, because you don't really need cooldowns until maybe the last boss, or maybe the Rage Guards, just depending on what kind of the tank you have. But usually you don't really need to take too much damage. Another thing that I forgot to mention here is this is where we're about to use our Invis Potion, and so make sure that you don't use a potion on this boss. That boss puts a bleed on your tank, and so if you have the bleed on you, make sure that you don't potion, use your Invis Potion while you have the bleed, and because then it'll take you right out, then you'll be an idiot. Okay, so you go all the way through here. Now you can actually skip the Rage Guards, but I prefer not to do that because they pat pretty close to the boss. Another alternative here is that you can either pull the Rage Guards to the boss, and that's what we did whenever we didn't have all that much time left, and so we kind of had to rush things. The first boss, or the first phase of Warlords of Draenor is very minimal damage. Now the Rage Guards do a shockwave, it's just a frontal cone shockwave. It's the same as the ogres, the large ogres before the third boss. I forgot what their name is. Siege Breakers. The Siege Breakers do. It's just a large, a frontal cone AoE stun, and it does a lot of damage too. They also put a Colossus Smash debuff on your tank, and both of them can have it on your tank at the same time. If both of them have it on your tank at the same time, you need to either be stunning them, kiting, or in one way or another reducing damage that you're taking, because they actually do a pretty good amount. Now, Warlords of Draenor in Phase 1 doesn't really do anything. She does like, I think she throws like a spear at somebody. I read that in a dungeon journal. Like that's how little it matters, okay? But the main thing you do need to watch out for is the Cyclone, because if you get hit by a Cyclone, as you can see, it does a pretty good amount of damage. And so make sure you don't get hit by the Cyclone. Other than that, this fight's pretty much just rinse and repeat. Now, I think that they removed the knockback mechanic that she used to have in heroic mode. And I remember, like, they've redid that knockback mechanic, like, I think 3 or 4 times since the beta whenever I started. And so I'm kind of glad to see it gone, especially in challenge mode, because of the drakes, and it's like really super annoying as a tank, but it was always fun to kind of have to deal with. Either way, whenever she gets to about 50-60% health, she's going to go ahead and have the ads come down. And the 3 ads, as I said before, this is the exact same as it is on heroic. You just want to make sure that you kind of have the ads under control. And as soon as you do, you can either pop heroism now. I wanted them to pop heroism now, but they didn't want to do it, and so we had to wait to pop heroism until she came back down. Either way, you're just avoiding Drake fights. The Worm Riders do a Dragon's Roar, which is an AoE stun, and they also do a Death Grip, and so you kind of don't really want to be right directly next to them, but you don't want to have one of the drakes breathing fire in between you and the ad. It's really annoying. I fucking hate that mechanic. Either way, so if you're melee, you're going to be taking a lot of damage. You might want to pop like a minimal defense cooldown. So whenever she comes back down, again, the way that these drakes work is that if a drake comes down, they can only come from 2 different directions, and that's from the back of the platform and from the right of the platform. And so if there's a drake at the right of the platform and the drake just left from the back of the platform, watch the back and just make sure that you don't stand in the drake fire. It's just more ways to minimize damage, and also not really maximize like anything else, but it's just so your healer can help do some damage, and also so it's less stressful, because this fight can be very stressful, and especially if your healer is trying to finish a cast while a drake is trying to breathe on them. It can just be, as I said before, just very stressful in general. And so anyway, just make sure that you have this fight under control. If you have good players in a group and all the other stuff, you really shouldn't have too much trouble doing this. Pop evasion or die by the sword while she's doing the blaze storm there, and you won't take any damage. As you can see, there was the last one. We just got our achievement for completing all of them. And so I really hope that these guides helped you guys. And, I might do some other ones in the future with some different types of, I guess, like strats and like ways that we do the different pulls. And if I find a better way, but I think this is a very risk-free method. And as you can see, we had about 30 seconds left over. So anyway, guys, that's pretty much all it takes to get UBRS. Challenge mode gold done. So thanks for watching, and like, comment, subscribe.